ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರೆ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಹಿಸ್ಟೋರಿಯನ್ ಸೊಸೈಟಿ, ಇತಿಹಾಸ ದರ್ಪಣ ಹಾಗೂ ಋತುಮಾನ.com ಸಂಯುಕ್ತ ಆಶ್ರಯದಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೀತಾ ಇರತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಅರಿವಿನ ನೀರಿಗೆ ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸ ಸರಣಿಯ 25ನೇ ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸಕ್ಕೆ ತಮಗೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಸ್ವಾಗತ. ಇವತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಉದ್ದೇಶಿಸಿ ಮಾತನಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಶ್ರೀ ಎಂ.ಕೆ. ರಾಘವೇಂದ್ರ ಅವರು. ಅವರು ಸಿಟಿ ಅಂಡ್ ಸಿನಿಮಾಸ್ಕೇಪ್, ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು ಮತ್ತು ಕನ್ನಡ ಸಿನಿಮಾ ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥ ವಿಷಯದ ಕುರಿತು ಸುಮಾರು 1 ಗಂಟೆಗಳ ಕಾಲ ನಮ್ಮ ನಡುವೆ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಉದ್ದೇಶಿಸಿ ಮಾತನಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಮತ್ತು ಮಾತು ಮುಗಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ಸಂವಾದಕ್ಕೆ ಅವರು ತೆರ್ಕೋತಾರೆ. ಎಂ.ಕೆ. ರಾಘವೇಂದ್ರ ಅವರ ಪರಿಚಯ ಬಹುತೇಕರಿಗೆ ಇದೆ. ಸಿನಿಮಾ ಸ್ಟಡೀಸ್ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟ ಹಾಗೆ, ವಿಶೇಷವಾಗಿ ಕನ್ನಡದ ಸಿನಿಮಾ ಸ್ಟಡೀಸ್ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟ ಹಾಗೆ ಅವರ ಪರಿಚಯ ಇದೆ. ಆದ್ರೂ ಕೂಡ ಔಪಚಾರಿಕವಾಗಿ ಫಾರ್ಮಲಿ ಅವರನ್ನ ಪರಿಚಯ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಳ್ಳುವುದು ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಕರ್ತವ್ಯ ಆದ ಕಾರಣ ಅವರನ್ನ ನಾನು ಪರಿಚಯಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ಎಂ.ಕೆ. ರಾಘವೇಂದ್ರ is a writer on cinema, culture and politics, specializing in especially Kannada cinema, particularly its political side. After getting master's degree in science and working in the financial sector for over 2 decades, he has become a full-time writer. He won the national award, the Swarna Kamal, for Best Critic in 1997 and received a Homi Bhabha Fellowship in 2000. Since then, he has authored 4 volumes of academic scholarship from international publishers. Seduced by the Familiar, Narration and Meaning in Indian Popular Cinema, that is published through Oxford University Press. Bipolar Identity, Region, Nation and the Kannada Language Film, that is also published by Oxford University Press. The Politics of Hindi Cinema in the New Millennium, Bollywood and Anglophone Indian Nation, that is also published by OUP. And Locating Word Cinema, Interpretations of Film as Culture, that is his recent book which published through Bloomsbury. He has also published 4 volumes of popular film criticism. His writing has been anthologized internationally for publishers like Sage, British Film Institute, Routledge, Oxford University Press, and he has written journalistic pieces for The Hindu, The Indian Express, Hindustan Times, Times of India, EPW, and many such journals and newspapers, and including Caravan, Frontline, and others. The book review and Biblio, a review of book. His next book, he also did book review and Biblio, a review of books actually. His next book, Philosophical Issues in Indian Cinema, Approximate Terms and Concepts, is being published by Routledge in December 2020, and a book on politics, The Hindu Nation and Modernity is coming out through Bloomsbury in 2021. He has written on a variety of political and cultural issues for First Post, that is a web Zen, and Deccan Herald in the past few years. He is founder editor of a very renowned magazine, cinema journal, culture journal, that is Phalanx, that is basically debated to the debate of cinema and culture in India. So this is a brief introduction of M.K. Raghavendra. ಬಹುಶಃ ಕನ್ನಡದ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಕನ್ನಡ ಸಿನಿಮಾದ ಕುರಿತಂತೆ ಮೊದಲು ಒಂದು ಪುಸ್ತಕ ರೂಪದ ಪ್ರಕಟಣೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಬಹುಶಃ ಎಂ.ಕೆ. ರಾಘವೇಂದ್ರ ಅವರದು. ಅವರ ಬೈಪೋಲಾರ್ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಟಿ ಏನಿದೆ, ರೀಜನ್, ನೇಷನ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಕನ್ನಡ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕೃತಿ ಏನಿದೆ, ಬಹುಶಃ ಕನ್ನಡ ಸಂದರ್ಭದ ಮೊದಲ ಅಕಾಡೆಮಿಕ್ ಕೃತಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಅಂತಹ ಕನ್ನಡದ ಮತ್ತು ಭಾರತೀಯ ಸಂದರ್ಭದ ಒಬ್ಬ ಮಹತ್ವದ ಲೇಖಕನನ್ನ, ವಿದ್ವಾಂಸರನ್ನ ನಾನು 3 ವೇದಿಕೆಗಳ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಮತ್ತು ನೆರೆದಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕೇಳುಗರು, ಆಡಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಪರವಾಗಿ ನಾನು ಅವರನ್ನು ಸ್ವಾಗತ ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಸ್ವಾಗತ ಸರ್, ವೆಲ್ಕಮ್. ಮತ್ತು ರಾಘವೇಂದ್ರ ಸರ್ ಅವರನ್ನು ನಾನು ವಿಷಯ ಮಂಡಿಸ್ಬೇಕಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ಓಕೆ ಸರ್.
PPT, I'll go to this PPT, okay.
Okay,
now it's okay, right?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, it's visible, okay. So I'll start with, thank you very much to the Bangalore Historical Society for having invited me. I know Pradeep for quite some time. I hope, I'm not exactly a specialist on Hindi, on Kannada cinema. I've generally written on everything. Now right now I'm more writing on international cinema, trying to write academic books on international cinema. It's not usually easy to write on international cinema academically, where Indians as well as generally required to stick to their own subject somehow. But I'm trying to produce something. I've produced one academic work. So, but at some point, I did a lot of study on Kannada cinema also, on the politics, the history of Kannada cinema. I've done some academic work. It's more an interpretation of Kannada cinema in the light of local social history, local politics. Okay. Now, Kannada cinema is only one category in Indian popular cinema. So therefore, I'll give you a broad thing about why Indian popular cinema is different from the rest of world cinema, right? Now, cinema, as it began, was an extension of photography. It began as an extension of photography because it is ideally placed to capture reality. That is, it's a mechanical device which captures reality, and therefore it is ideally placed to pursue mimesis. Does the word, I hope the word mimesis means anything to you. It's actually a kind of replication, mimicking of the world, okay, by like art is supposed to mimic reality in some way, right? So mimesis is that sort of thing, right? The earliest films made were by the Lumiere brothers, which were documentaries. They were documentaries, and the films they made were train arriving at station, workers leaving factory. They just placed the camera, captured whatever was coming in front of the camera was there. And it is said that the people who saw the movies like train coming into station, okay, actually got frightened by the fact that when they're watching it as if the train itself is coming, okay, which means immediately it was understood that almost at the same time that it was also an ideal way of promoting illusion. One of these people sold tickets to the public to watch their short films, short documents. And one of the people who did that, who watched it, was a man called Méliès. These were the Lumiere brothers. Méliès was a magician. So Méliès realized that he could use cinema to create illusion rather than promote reality, right? What has happened in cinema, by and large, is it's divided into, see, what is illusion exactly? Illusion is not something which is not there, not real. It is also inner reality, right? What you imagine becomes illusion, right? So that it becomes inner reality, it becomes expression. So the question is cinema, from illusion and reality, okay, it became expression and capture of reality. That became the dichotomy, right? Now, when you come to Indian cinema, what were the first films which were? So you can generally see that in that world cinema. If you look at it, there is expression of the authorial expression. There is the capture of reality. There is also character subjectivity of some sort, right? So apart, when you look at Indian cinema, what happened was the first movies were neither documentaries nor fantasies nor illusion. Okay, the first films are mythological films, right? Made by Palke, by Dada Saheb Palke, D.G. Palke. They were mythological films. Palke insisted that particular point that his films were realistic. Okay. Now, what he understood by realism was very different from the Lumiere kind of realism. What he said was that it is giving manifestation to truths that people know are true, what people understand as truths. Okay. Like, for example, whether Rama, Krishna, Puranic truths, these are truths which are all people are already aware of them as truths. I am only trying to create this particular situation in which these truths will be relayed to the public, right? It will be delivered to the public was basically his idea. So from that business, that itself does not receive much attention. But the important thing is a new category is introduced here. It is no longer reality illusion. You've got a new thing called truth, right? Now this truth is not based on observation. Okay. I don't know. I think all of you must have heard this, right? All of you must have heard this. That truth is within us, right? Learning is within us. Okay. How can truth be within you, right? So obviously it is not truth. So for example, a farmer learning about the like planting seasons, when to plant his seeds, when to do all that sort of thing cannot obviously be knowledge within you. So obviously there's a certain kind of knowledge of the self and that sort of thing, which is a different kind of knowledge altogether. We won't go into that exactly, but that is what Hindi cinema, popular cinema in the world, in India does, which is to relay messages, okay, which are recognizable as the the words of wise men. Okay, what would be the basic kind of truths which Indian cinema delivers to the public? The sanctity of the mother, okay, the guru, okay, the joint family, the unity of the joint family being sacrosanct, okay, or in movies like Three Idiots, the self-fulfillment and pursuing your own thing and not being tied down by the rat race. These are generally things, I don't know exactly where these things could be. It could be from your mythologies, from your epics. It could be even from this Manusmriti. It could also be part of it. See, Manusmriti, there's a lot of rubbish which has been thrown aside. Nobody wants to look at it. But if you actually study the Manusmriti, you find many things which would still be valid in some way. Yes, I mean, there are some of these things. So the question is, all these have been taken in some way. What is a good man? What is a bad man? And the basic thing is this thing of dharma. What exactly is dharma? See, nobody talks about dharma. Nobody knows what it exactly is, right? It's basically a kind of thing that is developed here. So this would be the basic way. So these truths are what the popular film in India has done. Unlike, say, for example, we look at Hollywood, right? Hollywood simply delivers the story. Hollywood does not give you messages. We take The Godfather, for instance. What is the message of The Godfather? Nothing. There's a story. You interpret the story in any way. If you look at something like, say, Hum Aapke Hain Kaun, you look at Sholay, you look at Diwar, obviously there is a, you look at Bedar Kannappa, you understand there's a message, right? Bedar Kannappa is not my message. It's not a kind of film where my message is primary, which is your pride. A man must lose his pride. He must not be proud. This is the basic message of Bedar Kannappa, right? So same thing with Bangara the Manushya, what a person is, selflessness, goodness, all these qualities. It has a certain kind of message. Indian popular cinema has a certain kind of message which the rest of world cinema doesn't have. Okay, this is true also. Just a minute. Yeah. Okay, I think it's all right. Okay. So the question is, so the thing is that these truths are pervaded by Indian popular cinema, which is not true of. So the question is, in order to convey this ideal, okay, this once somebody asked me, you look at American cinema, you get some sense of America. You look at Indian cinema, you don't get a good sense of India. Why is that? How do you understand India by Indian cinema? I told them, see, Indian cinema is not in popular cinema is not the way things are, but the way things should be. Okay, that's it. It's like, for example, there was a moral ideal in the before 1990. After the 1990s, it became an economic ideal, but it's basically ideal. What is the kind of some kind of ideal, which is why the characters who come out of popular cinema are heroic. Like they're heroic level. Okay, there are no ordinary people. Somebody also asked me, Rajkumar has ever played ordinary, what ordinary men he has played. I said, Rajkumar has never played ordinary men. He's played poor men. Okay. But there have never been ordinary men. Even poverty is played at the heroic level. You understand me? Okay. So the question is, all of them have messages, all of them have. So the question is a completely different. For example, a poor man is played by Rajkumar would be very different from a poor man as shown by Satyajit Ray. Okay, they're completely different things. Rajkumar will be played at some heroic level of some sort, right? So the question is that popular cinema in India has generally delivered messages, right? Now we'll go to the characteristics of popular cinema in Kannada. What are the characteristics of popular cinema in Kannada, right? Now Kannada is, what is the thing, the difference between Kannada and, okay, no, wait. Okay. Now, Hindi cinema is a national cinema in the sense it tries to address people all over India in all kinds of corners, even people who don't understand Hindi. Okay, it's in fact the large portion. Like for example, Tamil Nadu may resist Hindi, but it won't resist Hindi cinema, right? Hindi cinema doesn't require much of a vocabulary. People who don't know Hindi can understand. Okay, every single thing, one word of lie, I think 3 or 4 words, Hindi words is enough. Pyar, Adalat, Mujrim, Khoon, okay, a handful of 5 words or 10 words is enough to understand all of Hindi cinema, right? That is the basic thing about Hindi cinema, okay. But Kannada cinema is different. Now, Kannada cinema, all cinema have constituencies, right? They have constituencies. That is, they address somebody or the other. Hindi cinema can be taken to address a pan-Indian national audience. Kannada cinema, what was it addressing? It was not addressing Kannada speakers in all, okay, the totality. It was not a pan Kannada cinema for a long time, right? It was basically addressing Mysore cinema. It was basically a Mysorean cinema. Princely Mysore of the territory it addressed. Now you look at Kannada cinema, now you've got Rakshit Shetty who's making a Mangalorean cinema. It is not the Mysorean cinema, but a Mangalorean cinema. Art cinema, Kannada art cinema is a national cinema once again. It addresses what do you say it addresses like Assamese art cinema. It is not really meant for local consumption. It is meant for consumption at the national level for certain, shall we say, educated public, film societies, film festivals, and that sort of thing, right? So the question is, Pavan Kumar, for example, is a new kind of urban cinema which addresses people in the various cities. So you can remake a Pavan Kumar movie in a shall we say in Tamil. It doesn't make much of a difference. But you can't make Bedar Kannappa, Rajkumar's Bedar Kannappa or Bangaral Manisha in some other language. It won't work. Okay. Main reason is it's easier to remake a Tamil movie in Hindi, but Kannada movies used to be difficult to remake in Hindi for the simple reason that Mysore was a princely former. It was under indirect British rule. Culturally, it was more conservative in many ways. It was very different from, say, for example, the presidencies. Okay, so it is the Bombay presidency and Madras presidency were both under direct English rule, but Mysore was not. So the question is that Mysore cinema, Kannada cinema, is farther away from Hindi cinema, okay, than something like Tamil cinema. For example, Malay Kaddan was made as I think Azad, okay. A number of Tamil movies were remade in Hindi, but when Nagarahavu, they tried to remake it in Hindi, it didn't work, right? Even I think though Anta was fairly close in some way to Hindi, it didn't work in Hindi. So the question is, for some reason, the Kannada movies cannot be remade. And my own understanding is that Kannada films are basically, I mean, forget about Rakshit Shetty, forget about Pavan Kumar and art cinema, but by and large, the traditional Kannada popular film was meant for a Mysorean audience, and Mysorean because it was indirect British rule was culturally at greater odds with Bombay and with the Bombay presidency. Okay, okay. So now the thing is, you look at, for example, princely Mysore was called a nation within a nation. Okay, so the question is, it saw itself as a nation. Look, when you draw the map of India, you would think that everybody got independence at the same time in 1947. That the nation is percolated, sense of nationhood is percolated all over the country, right? Equally, right? It's not true. Okay. Yeah, I think there are some areas which would be with the nation hardly has percolated. For example, the Andaman Islands. Among those islanders, there would hardly be any sense of nationhood. Okay, the nationhood is largest. Where would it be largest? I think it would be largest in those areas where the British were first there. Bengal, some of these areas. Some place like, I think Mysore area would be less of the nation would have percolated there. I'll give you some examples from movies, Kannada movies, okay. So it looks like that Mysore sees even the other Kannada territories, Mysorean cinema, sees the other Kannada territories as foreign in some way. I don't know if you looked at the thing. How many Kannada movies have you come across where there is a romance, okay, a romance which leads to fruition, that is, it's a successful romance that ends in marriage between a person from old Mysore, okay, princely Mysore, all these countries, including Shimoga, Hassan, all these areas, Chitradurga, all these areas, and say, for example, say Bellary, or you look at something like Raichur. Is there a heroine from Raichur? Is there a heroine from even Mangalore? When they make a movie set in Mangalore, for example, Kannada movie, okay, they usually have people speaking Mysore Kannada, even in Mangalore. I remember, I think Shubha Mangala of Puttana Kanagal. I was quite surprised with the kind of Kannada spoken there, right? It is basically Mandya Kannada spoken in Shubha Mangala in Mangalore. I mean, it's a somewhat strange thing, which means this absence, for example, Mungaru Male, probably one of the first movies with some kind of romance between a Mysore boy from Bangalore and a Kodava girl. Okay, Kodavas are not considered that way. They're foreigners in that sense, in the terms of Mysore thing, because it is not part of my old Mysore at all. So the fact this is, and that is one of the reasons why that romance does not lead to any kind of success, right? You can't have any kind of dealings. It's like, it's like Amir Khan in Rang De Basanti cannot have a romance with a white woman. It cannot lead anywhere, right? Because she's foreign. This is a national cinema. This entire thing is a national cinema. What are we talking about? Hindi cinema is national cinema. So it is not possible when you have these boundaries of the nation transcribing or circumscribing the cinema for there to be a romance between an Indian and a foreign woman. It's not possible, right? I was talking about this, the same thing. I brought it up, okay, with somebody asked me, what about Billy Henty? Right? He asked me, what about Billy Henty in Puttana Kannangal? I had a look at that film. You know what Billy Henty is? Billy Henty is not about a romance between a Mysorean and a foreigner. It's about a failed romance between a Mysorean and another Mysorean played by Arti, right? It's not about so that white woman he marries because this romance fails. Okay, it's not about a romance between him and a white woman at all. Okay, so this is an interesting question which I was forced to look at and answer. What is the thing of Billy and thing? Okay, so the thing is, you look at something like Mungaru Malaya. Okay, that romance cannot lead to marriage. Okay, for the simple reason that she's Kodava, he is Mysore, right? This is the basic thing. That is the thing which is not allowed in that movie. Okay, now let's go along. What this thing is, how the nation and the region are represented, right, in Kannada cinema. You look at Nagarahavu. You just have a look at Nagarahavu, right? Now, this Ramachari, he's got pictures of various people. If you look at the kind of thing which is put up on the walls of his bedroom or whatever, you will find that the pictures on his walls of his bedroom, okay, his guru is the played Chamaya master or something, Chamaya master played by Ashwath, right? You find the associations are Kannada writers, T.P. Kailasam, all Kannada, and I think A.N. Krishna Rao, Anna Crew, then who else? I think a lot of these Triveni, I think a lot of these cultural figures from Kannada, from Mysore are there on the walls of his room. Then you have that, there's the other headmaster whom he hates, whom he ties up, right? If you look at the what is the iconography in his room, what are the pictures there, you will find national leaders, Gandhi, Nehru, etc., in his room. Okay, so there's a fundamental difference in which how that man is along with he is not really liked by Ramachari. Ramachari ill-treats him, and that man represents the nation. Whereas whom he likes, the whatever he dotes on, whatever his affinity, that is the region. So this distinction between region and nation is also perennially done. For example, you see this movie Bangaram Manisha, Bangaram Manisha, I think the father has a second wife or something in Hubli, if I remember right. Right? I remember this watching the movie, that second wife's house, you look at it, Hubli, right? Hubli, what are the pictures on the walls of his house? Again, national leaders, right? See, Hubli there is the basic thing. Hubli would be considered nation rather than region, right? It's not your Kannada, and your Kannada thing would be Kuvempu, it would be Anantmurti, it would be these Mysore writers, not so much the old Dharwad Karnataka people or the Mangalore people, not so much, right? So that is the way it works. Whereas art cinema will take all of the art cinema is pan Kannada, though it doesn't have much of a popularity. Art cinema is pan Kannada, whereas popular cinema, by and large, until the arrival of Rakshit Sethi and etc., it was basically a Mysore cinema. Okay. So the question is, so this Mungaru Malay, I talked about it. Then we come to see now the question is the marriages in old Kannada cinema used to be arranged marriages, right? What is the reason for arranged marriages? It's jati. It's a kind of it's a very caste-based thing, and it used to be arranged marriages or endogamy, that is a sister's daughter or that sort of thing. He would marry the sister's daughter. Endogamy used to be a key thing. Caste is a very keenly coming, very sharply denoted thing in Kannada cinema. It is not denoted in Hindi cinema. In Hindi cinema, okay, let us look at Hindi cinema. Hindi cinema, it is possible for a Gupta to marry a Mishra, okay, or a Pandey, okay, it is possible because what is Gupta? Gupta is Vaishya, right? Pandey would be Brahmin, right? So the question is, it does not matter very much, right? It does not matter very much, and it's not even problematized in the sense that it's not made an issue. For example, if a Gupta is marrying a Mishra, the fact that they are different castes will not be made an issue. In In Kannada cinema, only very rarely is this caste given a go by. I try to explain also when this happens. Um, I usually ask this question, right? What is, let's look at CID 999 in Goa. It's a James Bond movie. What is the cast of CID 999? Is there a cast? Is this cast connoted in any way? CID 999's cast is Jedar Bale. Is it connoted in any way? If you look at it, obviously it won't be said. It won't be said that he's this or that. But you look at, I would say, he's Brahmin. You know why? Okay, he is going along in an airplane, and some person called Rao Sahib Narsingh Rao comes in with the Mysore Peta. He comes and says hello to him, says, Prakash Avre, ನಿಮ್ಮ ನಮ್ಮ ಮಗಳಿದ್ದಾಳೆ ಮದುವೆಗೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನ ಅಪ್ರೋಚ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತಿದ್ದೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ something he wants. He makes a marriage offer to this Prakash, aka CID 999. My point is this: if he is going to go for an arranged marriage with somebody, would he not have looked at the fact whether they belong to the same caste or not? He would have, right? So my point is this: that basically, and Shiva, and this entire thing of what is the occupation, false occupation he gives, CID 999. I think it's in Goa Delhi. It is not in Greater Ballet. He says, "Nan coffee planter." Now, if you look at the way coffee planters, doctors, teachers, they're usually Brahmin names, Brahmin thing, whereas farmers would be Vakaliga, right? By and large, merchants would, Vaishyas, we don't know exactly what is Vaishya. Usually, but it will be some Panajiga Lingayat or some, it will be that sort of thing. So basically, it's denoted in some way. Progressive farmer would not have, they speak Kannada of a certain sort, right? Vakaliga Kannada is different from Brahmin Kannada. So when they highlight the Vakaliga Kannada for a farmer, they highlight it will be a different kind of Kannada for the progressive farmer or the for coffee planter. So this caste denotation, the denoting in Kannada cinema is very, very sharp. Okay. So the point is, why is it that this caste is stronger in Kannada cinema than in local cinemas? Even in Tamil cinema, it's pretty strong. Okay. Why is caste so important in local cinema but not in Hindi cinema? Any idea? See, my own sense is caste is not important as Varna, right? Caste is important only as Jati. See, the prohibited things are all in Jati. Like there is nothing, really no commonality between a Mysore Brahmin, who's, shall we say, a Smarta or a Madhva, and a Pandey or a Tiwari from UP, okay? It's not just, there is no, this is a Varna thing category. This Varna is a fiction. It is really no, it's basically some kind of fiction. But Jati is far more. So we know, for example, within a small space, you know the difference. We know the difference between, for example, I mean, because you rub shoulders with each other, you know the prohibited thing in marriages would all be between people of the dissimilar jatis who live close by. It is not. So the Hindi cinema, this Varna thing doesn't mean anything at all. Whereas in Kannada cinema or any small local cinema, all these caste issues become very, very strong. Okay, this is the thing, right? Dharma, for example, villains, when you start looking at villains, okay, you find that these villains who disobey are in Kannada cinema, early Kannada cinema, dharma is a key kind of way in which you do it. The dharma are people who don't follow their duty, who disobey who don't do the jobs properly, okay. Teachers who take, corrupt officials, these would be the kind of things that adharma or whatever, people who don't follow the general thing, right? So this is the basic thing. So it is. But dharma is not a big issue in Hindi cinema again, but it's because the Kannada cinema is a more traditional cinema, having come from a traditional society. Dharma is a key thing, right? And when we come to after 1947, you find there's a huge change in the way Kannada Hindi cinema. Huge changes in 1947. It made a big change in Hindi in 1947. For example, you take the courtroom scene. Courtroom scene was almost non-existent before 1947, right? The courtroom scene becomes important because the court is a sacred place where the truth cannot be denied, right? This is in Hindi cinema. Now the point is, what moral sanctity does a colonial court have? Nothing, okay? But the courtroom of the independent state has a huge amount of and a huge moral sanctity. the result of which the Hindi cinema changes considerably after 1947. In Kannada cinema, it does not change very much. Okay, it does not change very much. Kannada cinema remains more or less the same even after 1947. 1956 becomes a key year for Kannada cinema. What is the year thing of Kannada cinema in 1956? Linguistic reorganization, enlargement of the state. Okay. In fact, it's very interesting that the arrival of Rajkumar, Vedar Kannappa is a very interesting film. You know, it is generally a well-known fact that the demand for, for the larger, greater Mysore, or which eventually became Karnataka, the demand for greater Mysore came not from Mysore, princely Mysore. It came from outside because there were minorities there, and they wanted. I mean, they were oppressed in some way. They hope to gain. That is, these people outside Mysore hope to gain. Okay, by being made part of a larger thing. Whereas there was not much of a demand in Mysore. Simply one of the important facts was that Mysore is very prosperous. These other areas are not so prosperous. Places like Raichur, Bellary, Davangere, Dharwad. Davangere, I think, was Mysore. Dharwad. Okay, none of these places were very, what is it, prosperous areas. So there's actually some resistance from old Mysore, some resistance for the enlargement of the thing. In Bedar Kannappa, it's very interesting. There are 3 or 4 movies made at that time. Bedar Kannappa, Bhakta Vijaya, okay, and a couple of others. It's about a man, Bedar Kannappa, if you look at it in a certain way, it's about an Gandharva in heaven who uh, who is cursed by I think Kubera or so, to be reborn as a human being of a low caste in a tribe or some such thing, to be born on earth, right? And therefore he and his wife are both reborn on earth, a husband and wife in a tribe. Okay. So the question is, they are cursed with poverty. The same thing, Bhakta Vijaya, something happens, somebody is cursed with poverty. The whole point is, I interpret this as and then what happens? They don't go back, he doesn't go back to heaven. Bedar Kannappa doesn't go back to heaven. Bedar Kannappa gets a larger community around himself. Okay, a larger community, people gather around him. Same thing with Bhakta Vijaya. He gathers around him. Both played with Rajkumar in the lead role. Okay, they gather around him. Okay, and when they gather around him, he builds a larger community. So I take this as an allegorical representation of Mysore, of the Kannada thing territory being enlarged in some way, but in the process having to suffer poverty, because Mysore had to suffer poverty. I mean, this curse was that you have to what's it called, be integrated with poorer regions. These Raichur, Bidar, and Gulbarga were poor compared to Mysore, which was really prosperous. It had irrigation. It was very fertile land. And Bangalore and Mysore were extremely forward cities and all that. These could be. So that is the way it was interpreted in movies like that. Okay. Now let's look at the next one. Let's look at Bangalore. Important thing of Bangalore, how Bangalore is represented. Now, the Bangalore became the capital of the state only in 1956. Okay. Now, the thing was, important thing is, what is Bangalore? Bangalore became important under the British, okay, in the 19th century. See, what happened was, between 1831 and 1881, the Maharaja was deposed for some reason. There was some, I think there was some, in some Shimoga district, there was some uprising or some such thing. It was felt that the Maharaja of Mysore could not handle it, and deposed for 50 years. The Maharaja had no say at all, right? And the state was, Mysore was ruled from Bangalore by commissioners. Okay, I think Mark Cubbon was one of the commissioners. And then, so what happened was, in order to help administration and all, they brought in a huge non-Mysore population, non-Kannada speaking. So you got this entire cantonment area, your Alsur, all these areas, which are that part of thing, the other side of Cubbon Park, right? That entire area was called cantonment. It was called cantonment, and you have a large, non-Kannada speaking population there. It became actually, or it was not even, it had none of the characteristics of the city. The city was a typical Mysorean enclave. It was the rest of Mysore. But this, what do you say, this entire Shivaji Nagar, Alsur, and all those areas became. So, but now, of course, with the growth of Bangalore, the two areas have merged. But you can still see the same characteristics. People don't speak Kannada, and English has become a very big thing in Bangalore. More people speak English in Bangalore than any other city. Okay, English has become lingua franca in some way in Bangalore in many ways, largely because of this institution of English, the English medium schools and all that. That is what has happened. So the question is, Sir Mark Cubbon is a key figure. So the question, what happened was that after this, when the Maharaja was deposed, after that, for a long time, the separateness and all that. So the question is, you can take something for granted, okay, that the city, the cantonment and the city being separated, you will be, that the Bangalore has a completely different characteristic in relation to Mysore, though it's part of old Mysore. It's a completely different characteristic in Kannada cinema than from something like Mysore city. Mysore city would be different. So as far as you're concerned, when we talk about Kannada cinema, we're talking, where are we talking about? We're talking about these old Mysore areas. Shimoga would be very key. Hassan would be very important. This would be, which are the other things? It would be, I think, Tumkur and all these areas is very important. Bangalore, by and large, it remains confined to the city area. Okay. So I'm saying that because of this thing of Bangalore, and even after independence, what happened was Bangalore became the seat of public sector investment, central government investment. So the question is, and a lot of central government investment, a lot of the employees of central government were recruited from outside and on that. So the question is that Bangalore is more associated with the nation, Indian nation, rather than with the Mysore state, with the region, right? So the public which consumes Kannada cinema, you know, not the Rakshit Shetty, not the Pawan Kumar thing, by and large is ambivalent feelings towards Bangalore. Okay, and that is borne out by films after films after films. It's borne out by what exactly is this thing. Okay, so you will find that. Okay, so the question is, Kannadigas were not recruited. It was a big issue at some particular point, and Kannadigas have generally not been happy with the way Bangalore has, the way it has, it has gone about, and the fact that, then there's a huge migration also, subsequent migration of people from outside. But it is not begun with this technology boom or something. This is began with the British only in the 19th century, and after the independence, it was this public sector investment in Bangalore which made it a national city rather than a regional city. Okay, we go to the next slide. Okay, now let's look at the trajectory of Bangalore and Kannada cinema, 1956 to 1969. I think I may overshoot a little. It doesn't matter. No, I hope you don't mind. Huh? The question is, when Bangalore is represented, what are the emblems which Bangalore is represented by? Okay, these emblems are things like Lal Bagh, Vidhan Sauda, okay, Kempegoda bus service station. You don't find, for instance, cantonment. You will not find MG Road by and large represented. When they are represented, it's an anomaly that has to be interpreted. Okay, so don't point out some Kannada movie and say this is represented. There are reasons. Cantonment railway station represented means something very specific in the context of that movie. City railway station does not. City railway station is simply Bangalore. Cantonment railway station does not mean Bangalore. You have to understand this, right? Cantonment and this Bangalore bus station represents Bangalore. Okay, Bangalore is Subhash Nagar bus station. Okay, so you will find that the first thing mentioned of Bangalore as a motive, right? In Kannada cinema happens in I think to my knowledge, I mean I may be wrong here, but whatever I noticed in the course of my watching is Bantulu's Schoolmaster, 1958, right? In this film came after reorganization, and you have a romance there between a Brahmin boy from Malur, I think, and a Lingayat girl from Shimoga. Now look here, okay, you're talking immediately after integration. Okay, you're talking about enlarging the state in some way, making it larger, integration within the state with the Kannada speaking community. So that shows itself as giving up with the endogamy and giving up with arranged marriage. You have love. And where is love happen? Love happens in Bangalore, because Bangalore is the center in some way. It's also interesting that when you want to talk about enlargement of the state, you still come up with Malur, which is in Old Mysore, And Shimoga also in old Mysore. You will not bring in Gulbarga, you will not bring in Bidar, you will not bring in Bijapur, right? Okay, or even Mangalore. The point is, this enlargement still happens. So, this was the question of intercaste marriage in some sense. Okay, they are classmates. They study in Bangalore, and I think they have some romance in Bangalore. I think Lal Bagh features in that particular romantic scene, if I remember right. I'm not too sure about this. Okay, this is interesting. The Bangalore makes a kind of regular. You see, at this particular point, Rajkumar is very important in Kannada cinema from Rajkumar's entire thing. I mean, he ruled Kannada cinema like nobody else, and nobody else will, right? He's the 60s. I will not go very much into this, but he went on playing roles, enlargement. Like for example, fighting Tamil wrestlers. I think Ranadira Kantirava. He's a wrestler. He wrestles with. I think he does that. Or is that some other film? He wrestles with the Malya, with the Tamil wrestler and defeats him. Then there is this thing of the double two marriages, the king having one arranged marriage, okay, and one love marriage. There are I think 2, 3 movies are there. I forget which are the movies. I think Kittur Rani Chennamma, right? Kittur Rani Chennamma. Kittur Rani Chennamma again is an interesting movie because Kittur Rani Chennamma speaks Mysore Kannada. No enlargement, it's okay, it's all very well. It can be standard. But her ministers who betray her speak Dharwad Kannada or whatever. Okay, that different Kannada, wherever she comes from, that kind of Kannada. It's a different Kannada. So this Kittur Rani Chennamma, I think, is also the second wife of the king. Okay, and the second marriage becomes a way of showing, first marriage is arranged marriage, second marriage is love marriage, which means that the enlargement that you take on this additional territories becomes part of yours. You integrate with the larger territory. That becomes a way of of dealing with this thing of the enlarging territories and the Kannada. The Kannada identity becomes thing that is the way actually. That you marry somebody from somewhere, whatever. That is the basic thing. So the second marriage is another thing which keeps happening. Okay. Bangalore makes a regular appearance in the 60s and becomes an emblem of good modernity. See, one of the things about Bangalore is Nehruvian modernity, okay, because it's a national. Nehruvian modernity is a big issue in Indian cinema in the 50s and 60s. It's a very big issue in 50s and 60s. So the question is, but Mysore modernity is slightly different. Who represents Mysore modernity? Vishwesvaraya, by and large, right? Vishwesvaraya, see, Mysore is a very modern thing, technologically modern, very modern. But the point is, Nehruvian modernity includes other things like superstition, many other things, women's rights and that sort of thing includes. It's not quite the same. But anyway, coming back to this, you will find in Bhagya the Bhagilu, B.G. Basavanna deal with industry, legitimate opportunities in Bangalore. Then you have this thing called Bangara the Who in 1967. A man from Bangalore marries a girl afflicted by leprosy. He's a government servant, I think. So that relationship between Bangalore and good modernity. See, in Hindi cinema, doctor was good modernity, 50s I'm talking about. And cabaret dancer was bad modernity, right? So the question is modernity, the threats of modernity is bad modernity. Not so much Helen as a little earlier. Something in like Bazi and all that, Bazi, some of those movies, right? Bad modernity is represented by cabaret dancer, by gambling, by nightclubs. Good modernity by doctor. Here in Kannada cinema, good modernity is also this man marrying a woman who's had leprosy and who's been cured of it is Bangalorean. The thing, Bangalorean is good modernity. So Bangalore features very positively. Okay. 1967, 60, Hannele Chikuridaga, in which a widow from Mysore is wed by a widower. Okay, again, Mysore is equated with tradition, okay, traditional values. Bangalore is tradition, is equated with modernity, modern trends and all that. This is in 1968. The high point of Bangalore's trajectory as a modern space, okay, is represented by CID 999 Jade Ballet, 1968. This is very interesting, okay. In this particular film, you have nightclubs. Okay, you have Bangalore International. I don't know if you're aware of this hotel. It was there when I was a boy. This hotel Bangalore International was some kind of place which has cabarets. But the funny thing here is, okay, that this place Bangalore International is not a bad place. Okay, your families sitting there, husbands, wives sitting and watching cabarets and all that. To say that Bangalore is a modern place, Bangalore could really, It is the kind of place where people are accustomed to being modern. Okay, this is I think the high point of Bangalore's modernity or modernness or whatever is represented in 1968. Suddenly in 1969, you look at it, right? You look at it in 1969, you find Mayor Muthanna, Bangalore is where criminals reside, they gamble, they do this, all negative portrayal of Bangalore. Why is it a positive portrayal in 1968 and a negative portrayal in 1969? What do you think is the reason? Okay, this entire business of Bangalore becoming more and more and more important in Kannada cinema up to 1968, okay, happens alongside a national phenomenon. What is that? It is Nijalingappa, right? Nijalingappa rising and becoming important. He was the president of the Congress party, so you could very well say that his closeness to the centers of power, the syndicate, what was called the syndicate, the Congress party at the center, was seen by Kannada cinema as a state, okay, the region becoming closer to the nation in some way. But when Indira Gandhi came and Nijalingappa was sent away, that was the end of Nijalingappa's career. What happened after that was that that this entire region began to see the nation in negative terms. So Bangalore became negative. So it was positive up to 68, 69 it became negative. Okay. Now this is I mean it's just interesting to have a look at this. All this is speculative, but it seems to bear out. I mean I believe I've brought it out in my book, which bipolar identity. That's an academic book, which means it went through this peer review process and it has gone through peer review. So the question is, if it has gone through peer review, it is speculative, agreed. But the point is that peer review decides whether it's valid speculation or not valid speculation. It's published by Oxford University Press. So if it's not valid speculation, it's not published by anybody. It's published by an academic thing that's gone through the peer review, right? So the question, I will take that as assuming that my speculation, however speculative it may be, is in some way or other valid speculation, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. Now we'll go to this is the basic thing up to 1969. When you go to after 1969, you go to 1970 to 2010, you will find gradually something else happening. Bangalore again negative, right? In Bangarudu Manushya, rural youths are led astray in Bangalore, right? They learn bad ways. I think Vajramuni and somebody else, I forget who the other person was, they learn bad ways. Puttanakanagal's Nagarahavu, okay, shows a girl from a region, I think Chitradurga or so, pursuing becoming the prostitute in a hotel in Bangalore. Okay, in a hotel in Bangalore. Once again, Bhuta and Magayu shows litigation, people coming in, going out, coming in, going out to Bangalore, and Bangalore is not particularly. See, all this thing is all this project to Bangalore is not particularly. Okay. Okay, this Bhuta and Magayu is an interesting movie. Okay, now what is important in 1970s? Indira Gandhi's rise is okay. What about Devrajars? Devrajars was a right-hand man of Indira Gandhi, right? So the question is that you find when Devrajars is the right-hand man of Indira Gandhi, you find that Bangalore is represented in certain positive ways. And for example, for example, I don't know if you remember Gandhada Gudi. You look at Gandhada Gudi, I don't remember the year of Gandhada Gudi. I think Rajkumar marries a tribal woman. It's no longer, so the question is, these values, whatever are national values, suddenly overtaken, they suddenly come in, like, socialist values. In Bhutai and Magayu, I think it is this thing of a feudal landowner or something. So it was the Nishant and all were being made. So the question is, the feudal landowner was a Brahmin. Okay, we don't know, we don't have those Thakurs and all that in Karnataka. So therefore, you had to deal with the upper caste guy, had to be Brahmin. So Bhuta and Magai had to do that. So all this is that. You find that whenever you look at this, you find that when the state and the center come closer to each other in some way, okay, closer to each other, you find because of the affinity of some sort, then you find that Bangalore gets a good portrayal. Is there something wrong? Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not getting the
Yeah,
picture. Is it okay
yeah, it's
for
fine, sir.
me?
It's fine.
No,
Yeah,
I'm not able to get that video. You cannot start video because the host has asked you to start my video. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
Start.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So this is the thing. So the question is that seems to happen. In the 1990s, the migrant in Bangalore becomes a key figure in Kannada cinema. Migrant comes from various communities from outside, Ganesh and Madhvesh, Shruti, and all that. Migrants are from old Mysore and not from Kannada-speaking areas. Migrants keep coming in, okay, with this coming into Bangalore, and they're basically the migrant in Bangalore is basically seen as somebody separate from the local Bangaloreans, by and large. It seems to be happening all the time, right? The migrant becomes a separate category in Bangalorean in the representation in Kannada cinema, right? This post-liberalization, Bangalore becomes a glamorous space. Nishkasha, Beladingala Bale, Amrita Varshini, okay. They look at the cantonment area as well. But by 1990s, Bangalore is once again alarming in some way. It's AK-47, okay. But the point is this. I think a very important genre, it went on and on and on for a long time, is this long pictures, these chopper, people, like I tell you, the names of the movies would be Kitty, it would be Majestic, Jogi, Dunia, Kaddi Pudi, all these movies. You have this thing of the migrant coming into Bangalore, the migrant, okay, coming into Bangalore, living on the pavements, usually in the squalid areas of Bangalore. It's really funny, I keep talking about this. If, okay, if people are watching movies to talk, see power, to see rich wealth and all that, in Kannada, Hindi cinema, people see the typical Indian as somebody who goes to Europe and spends money. That's right. Something, they go to Europe, they go to buy this and buy that, they go around staying in some posh hotels and this and that. That is the way the Indian imagines himself in the global era, right? At the same time, Kannada cinema, also blockbusters, are seeing the typical the hero as somebody who lives on the pavement, who has this long which he carries in his hand, who gets into gangs and finally is eliminated by a low-ranking policeman, right? So the question is that somehow the self-image of this, the migrant as the epitome of the Kannadika, okay, coming into Bangalore, not having a place to live in, living, and finally, he lives on the pavement all the time. Becomes a dreaded gangster, but he remains on the pavement. He eats some biryani on the pavement. I mean, there is no indication that it's not this. I tell you what happens is, it's not that Kannadiga see only Kannada cinema. When a Kannadiga sees a movie as a Hindi, as an Indian, he will see a Hindi movie. When he sees a movie as a local, he will see it as what's a Kannada movie. So the question is, he sees different, he identifies the different communities in various. So one is your local community, one is a national community. So it's a slightly complicated thing. But the point is that this particular thing, this migrant was a very key, I just disappeared now. I think something has happened. But this migrant, the displaced migrant, the person, something like Jogi, something like Dunia, I thought Dunia is a very good film actually. Okay. I mean, it's very authentic. It's extremely sharp picture of, a certain kind of thing, squalor, a kind of thing of, So these films, okay, they show the city areas. They never venture into the cantonment areas. They do not go into Koromangala. They will not go. So they have a clear idea of where they may go to Baswangudi, but they will not go into Koromangala. Okay. Look at something like this one, Mungaru Male. Okay. Mungaru Male, you look at it, it's important here that the state is seen as an enemy. You say state, I mean police. Okay. Police are this thing of beating up. I was asking somebody in a thing, what exactly, if you look at the way the police, have you seen this thing by bashing up people, police beating up people in Kannada movies? Have you seen the uniforms? They're always wet with sweat, police. Okay? They're sweating all the time. You don't see it in Kannada Hindi movies. They're beating up people, and when they beat up people, their shirts and coats are all full of sweat. They're sweating. What is that sweat exactly? I think AK-47 one of them, but I'm saying the huge number of movies. What is this sweating policeman in Kannada cinema, right? What is this sweating policeman? Now, if you look at whom they're beating up, by and large, they're beating up Mysoreans, they're beating up Kannada people. Okay? So you can say that the sweat is some kind of indication of the amount of labor they have to expend in order to sort of, control the Kannada spirit or some such thing. So you could, it's not the villains that are beating up like that. It's usually people who are good. I mean, who are innocent people. The police are beating up like that in these movies. You look at AK-47, you'll realize that, right? That I think Shivraj Kumar is beaten up all the time. The policeman who beats him up is wet with sweat. The number of movies like this. So the question is, this entire thing is, you can see that sweat as indicative of the labor that the policeman has to undertake in order to quell the Kannada spirit. So the policeman and the state, which can be taken as a central state, not the local state, it is a central state, that kind of thing of the nation state is seen as antagonistic in some way to this, and Bangalore is a site where this resistance of the Kannadiga, or I mean, not even Kannadiga, in some way of the local, I'll say the local, okay. The local hero, the resistance of the local hero happens in Mysore. It happens in this Bangalore thing, and Bangalore is the place, okay. Now, let me go to the last, any issues up to here? I think, yeah, these are the questions, right? I'll go to the last, come to the conclusions, right? Now the point is, see, this Bangalore is a very strange position in Kannada cinema. Okay, you have a sense of, see, Bangalore, for some reason, does not seem to have a local, have a loyal public at all in some sense, right? There's a Mumbaikar, there is the Chennai, there is the person, the Chennai resident. But when the protagonist of a Kannada movie, protagonist, whole series of movies for 10 years or so, the protagonists of Kannada movies, when they're in Bangalore, they're always migrants. And they're not migrants from Gulbarga and Raichur, they're migrants from Old Mysore, right? In Jogi, it is MM Hills, right? In Dunia, I think it is Tumkur or some such thing. I'm not very sure. I don't know, but it's all Old Mysore. The migrants from Old Mysore who come to Bangalore who will retreated in Bangalore. Okay, this gives you some sense of who the public which watches these movies identifies with. It is not with the city. The city is seen as some kind of negative thing, and I've seen a couple of movies where bad people are people who own property in Bangalore. I can't exactly place these movies. So the question is, what is happening is, this Mysorean seems to be still in. Look, I tell you this Mysorean as a category. I have one more issue here, Okay, because I didn't bring up because of the thought that it will get too long. Is this Mysore mother in Kannada cinema is as distinct from the mother in Hindi cinema. The mother in Hindi cinema undertakes sacrifices. In Kannada cinema, the mother appears after 1956. It is the Kannada mother, right? Rajkumar brought the mother. Before that, the father was important, not the mother. The mother, in many ways, represents. She doesn't do anything in the movie, by and large, but she becomes an object of great veneration. It's not like Diwar, where the mother is actually sacrifices a lot. Here, the mother is the object of great veneration. I can't exactly quote these movies, because she represents the Kannada mother, the Mysore mother, more than the Kannada mother. And I find it interesting, okay, that a lot of Kannada movies in the 60s, right, in the 60s, by and large in the 60s and 70s, adapted Kannada novels from old Mysore novelists, okay, Anakru, okay, Tarasu, Triveni, I think Indira, okay, all these novels were adapted in Kannada cinema, and they had it's very different from adapting, for example, Shivaram Karant, adapting the other things. For example, they were actually, you could say that and popular cinema adapted them, not art cinema, right? The point is, art cinema will not adapt Triveni by and large. They won't adapt the kind of thing, right? They adapt other people, maybe Bhairappa and that sort of thing, but they don't adapt these popular novelists, right? My own understanding is that with the merging of Mysore with the rest of the Kannada speaking areas, Mysore became defunct as a culture, defunct, and remained in the minds of people, in the hearts of people. And that hearts of people was largely the literature of the space, of the literature of old Mysore, right? So they adapted a lot of literature. Subsequently, gradually Mysore faded from memory in Kannada cinema, right? Faded from memory. So the result is that Mysore gradually disappeared in some sense, okay? That Mysorean ethos has disappeared from Kannada cinema, okay? But their sense is that Bangalore does not have a loyal public. There is no sense in Kannada cinema of Bangalore being our city. It is always external to it. My issue here is, okay, I'll ask a very provocative question, okay? You don't have a loyal public. Now, who exactly are the public, of the Mysorean public in Kannada cinema? I mean, who are these people? They are people from this old Mysore, generally from this area, which was former princely Mysore, right? They still represent a community in some sort in Mysorean cinema. Now, you look at this community, you find that this is the same community which sends people to politics, right? If you look at the chief ministers of Karnataka, you will find if you're a Mangalorean, like say Janardhan Pujari, you don't get to be chief minister, right? You will go to the center, you will do this. Margaret Alva will go to the center, right? Like a person from Mallikarjun Kharge will not become chief minister. He goes to the center, right? So the point is very rarely, except I tell you one of the two, three, Bangarappa is a local in the sense he's a Shimoga person. Cases where I think when the local government is strong and cannot place its own person there, somebody like Virendra Patil or Ramakrishna Hegde is brought in somehow and made a chief minister. But by and large, you could say Yadurappa is a Shimoga person, Siddaramaiah is a Mysore person, okay? So all these people are basically like that. So my point is this, okay, that it is likely that the ruling people in power, I mean people in power by and large, okay, who are running the state, this is again speculative, are basically likely to have the same emotional thing that Kannada cinema has, is my speculative proposition, right? So the question is, if these people, if your Kannada cinema, the people who see, I know, indicates that the local Kannadiga, the local, when you say Kannadiga, I mean of this old territory, Mysore territory, has no loyalty towards Bangalore because of certain things. I mean, the history of Bangalore itself, how it has grown, what has happened to it in the past. What would be the relationship of the public, which probably it is some kind of, the public which consumes Kannada cinema, I think, is fairly close to the political leadership of the state by and large, right? Not regardless of what party comes in. So the question is, what is happening to Bangalore? Just look at it. Can it be raising the fact that that the politicians who come from this community don't have loyalty towards the city? There is no loyal Bangalorean. There is no such thing. Okay, because of who are exactly Bangalore? People who own property in Bangalore. Who is the Bangalorean? We don't know. Now it's become such a huge, such a huge cultural thing of mishmash. People from all sorts of places coming. Where exactly are we to look for? In fact, if you want to talk about, Kannada people today, Mysorean people, Kannada, not Mysorean as much as Kannada people, you will find them in government service. You will find them in the police. You will find them, you will find them in they are the people actually. But at the same time, the police are represented in a certain way in Kannada. It's a very, tricky proposition. So having said this, I will conclude my talk here. I hope it was interesting. I tried to sort of tell you whatever I've discovered in the process of learning about Kannada cinema. I'll be happy to take questions now. As I said, this is very speculative. So I try to make some sense of Kannada cinema and look at its politics, look at its history after 47 and maybe even before that. Okay. Any questions I'll be glad to take. Okay.
Thank you, Raghavendra sir, for the beautiful lecture. So now we are taking questions one by one. First question is from Vijaya Boratti. Is teaching English in Mysore University, Mysore.
Okay.
His question is, your lecture on the history of Kannada popular cinema is welcome. Your lecture has amply shown Kannada cinema being synonymous with old Mysuru and Bengaluru. It would be interesting and enriching to study Kannada cinema produced in North Karnataka, which do not get sufficient publicity
Yes.
or popularity in Southern Karnataka, or perhaps in rest of Karnataka. For instance, a film like Laddu Mutya with local Kannada language and theme
Okay,
of
I didn't
North
even know about
Karnataka.
it. I wouldn't have heard about this at all.
Yeah.
I know what I
Theme,
see.
I'll, yeah,
Continue.
Laddu Mutya with local Kannada language and theme of North Karnataka, then Bombay Karnataka is never heard. We need to understand why North Karnataka or that matter films in Tulu or Barry are produced. Are the productions alternatives to Mysore centric Kannada films or something else? It is his question and
Okay, I
observation.
will, let me say this, okay. I think, okay, that non-Mysore parts of Karnataka have been treated very shabbily by the government. Okay, I don't think they've been treated well, and I think, okay, you know what is the reason? What I think? I think that it has been treated as shabbily as Telangana was treated in by Andhra. Okay, so I suspect there's a lot of resentment also about this. For example, when you talk about river, they only talk. I met a person from Bidar who was complaining. When you talk about rivers, you only talk about Kaveri River. Why is that? Why didn't you talk of some other rivers which flow in Bidar? Why don't you talk about other rivers? Why not Godavari? Why not Krishna? Why? What about all these other kind of rivers? Okay, or Tungabhadra? Why is it you only talk about Kaveri? So it's basically what you're saying is absolutely correct, and I think you know that there is a certain hegemony. There's hegemony of Mysore. Okay, in Kannada cinema, in the Kannada space itself, there is a hegemony of Mysore. Okay, this is what I get it. And one of the reasons, okay, that there is no movement, okay, like of the Telangana kind in Mysore is, see, Telangana, you must remember one important thing, right? Hyderabad is in Telangana, right? Hyderabad is in Telangana means what? Hyderabad is a cash cow, right? Okay. Hyderabad generates money. So the question is the Telangana movement gets money out of Hyderabad. Whereas Bangalore is an old Mysore. You will not generate money in Bangalore for the. This is my generally my speculative thing. So I think what you're saying is right, but there is definitely some hegemony of old Mysore. It's not a unity of Kannada. There is definitely in the cultural sphere in Kannada cinema itself shows this out. That the hegemony is there. Why is this thing of why in the politics itself there seems to be non-local, non-Mysore politicians seem to go off to the center. What is all this? I agree with you, and I'll tell you what. But I'll tell you right now. One of the reasons, one of the things I think about your question, which I find interesting, is why is it not happening today? Okay. Now filmmaking has become a much more easy exercise, right? You can make movies and anything with small budget with this. Why I think one of the problems is that Mysore represents a fairly unified territory where there's a concentrated public of some sort. I don't think, for example, if you make a movie in with Gulbarga, Kannada, for instance, will Mangaloreans see it? No, they won't see it. If Mangaloreans would Gulbarga see Rakshit Shetty's films, I doubt it. Rakshit Shetty's films will probably be seen in Bangalore only. Okay. So the question is, when you make movies outside, do you have a concentrated public there prepared to watch this? The government is not going to encourage any of this. You'll have to make a new kind of movies using that kind of thing. You'll have to depend on the concentrate. Where are you going to exhibit it? Where are you going to show it? Is there a large enough public concentrated there? You'll have to look at all that. That is the only way you can deal with it. One way is to make art cinema where you're not dependent on government patronage. That's one possibility. There are the Tulu, Telugu, Konkani art films. There are Tulu art films. Okay, there are which we don't really see here. I've seen, for example, a Tulu art film or a Konkani art film. There is no sense of Kannada in that film at all. Okay, I've seen this. I was on, I think, some jury of some such thing in Indian Panorama sometime long back. I saw this Konkani or Tulu art film set in Mangalore or some set somewhere there, where you don't have this sense of Kannada or Kannada people or Kannada this thing at all. Okay. So this entire, you've got to understand that you have to understand what exactly this thing works. What are the various hegemonic influences within Karnataka? I mean, we can't look upon it as some kind of unity of all people who speak Kannada, right? It's not really like that. There are various dialects and there are different kinds of Kannada spoken. I told you in what is her name? Yeah, correct. Yeah. No, I've told you about this Kittur Channamma, right? Why is Kittur Channamma speaking Mysore Kannada? Okay, that's acceptable. But why is yeah, Vandananda Kaladali was not Shankar Nag. It was by Girish Karnad. It's an art film. It's an art film. See, art film, Kasargodi makes films like this, okay? They're art films and they are addressing a national audience, okay? Like you have these northeastern movies being made in Assam, which would be some small language spoken in Arunachal Pradesh. It works at the national level. It won't work as a commercial thing. And Girish Karnad made the film. It was not Shankar Nag. Shankar Nag acted in it. His first film, he acted in it. Okay. As an art film is possible. Karnad, Kasarvadi, Karnad, all of them have made movies in dialect. Ondanadu College is some kind of dialect. It's possible to do that. So this is possible. But if you want to make popular movies, you will have to have a concentrated public there which is prepared to sample these movies, prepared to consume these movies. Okay. Please, next question. Any question?
Uh, Another question from Anjan. How Bangalorean Muslims are shown in Kannada cinema? Any pattern?
Well, actually, see, the I don't know in Kannada cinema there not much representation, not much representation of Muslims in Kannada cinema. You don't see them very often. But I'll say this auto rickshaw, auto Raja, and all this only talks about the Kannada, only talks about the Kannada auto rickshaw drivers. Okay. In fact, there's a huge Muslim auto rickshaw driver community which is not touched upon in this auto thing at all, right? So you're talking about this Shankar Nag is not a darling of the Muslim auto rickshaw drivers. The Muslim auto rickshaw drivers would prefer Shankar Nag, not Shankar Nag, would prefer not Shah Rukh Khan, Salman Khan. They would prefer Salman Khan. But the Kannada auto rickshaw drivers become on Shankar Nag. So there's a big division between the Kannada speaking auto rickshaw drivers who represent a very large Mysore public and the Muslim auto rickshaw drivers. You have to look at this, you have to look at these specific categories, specific, what are they called? Occupations. So auto rickshaw driver is a definite large Kannada public in among auto rickshaw drivers, but that does not include the Muslim auto rickshaw drivers. That's different. So why is it that Auto Raja should have only Kannada auto rickshaw drivers and Muslims? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'll be glad to be corrected. I'm not. I don't stick by it.
Nikhila HS, she's teaching film studies in
I
English
know,
and foreign
Nikhila, I know.
language
Yeah,
university.
please, yeah.
Yeah, she's raising hand. Please, Nikhila, intervene with your question.
Thank you very much for taking us through the argument. We are familiar with bipolar, at least I am familiar with your bipolar identities book. And so it was interesting again to listen to you making this argument. And it's I mean, it's well taken, the nation within nation and the specific function that you see Kannada cinema performing within the context of Mysore. My question, actually, I have two questions. One is, it's not so much, and both these questions are not so much related to representation in cinema, but rather history writing, the writing of Kannada film history, for instance. I mean, again, it does not take into account, let's say, a Shivram Karanta, who is one of the pioneers of Kannada cinema, making films, and as early as in the 1930s and 40s. We still think of a Kannada cinema, which is, as you said, very, very Mysore-centric, even when we write the history of Kannada cinema. So I was wondering, how you would see or reckon with the blind spots in Kannada film history writing itself. That is one question. The second question is, if we take into account what happens to filmmaking activities post 1956. So Mysore is one of the places of some incipient filmmaking activities, but most of Kannada cinema is made in Madras. But from the 1970s and mostly in the 80s and 90s, Bangalore becomes one of the centers of filmmaking activities. Now, how does this, or does this in any way reflect on or get reflected in cinema per se, the way in which Bangalore figures as a center of filmmaking activities? These are my two questions. Thank you.
First question, this thing of writing of history, I am looking at from the consumption thing, right? How the film is consumed, right? I look, when you talk about popular cinema, right? When you talk about this, if you saw the title of my talk, it is Kannada popular cinema, right? Now, Shivram Karant, whatever, if you talk about the movies made, when was Shivram Karant's films ever popular? Okay. I mean, so my talk does not look into a kind of all kinds of movies made. I'm not going to look at all kinds of movies made. I'm just looking at the consumption thing is what is popular and what is not popular. So the question is popular. So the question is, the talk. I agree with you that you're going to talk about the history of Kannada cinema. I'm not writing a history of Kannada cinema. I'm not writing a history of Kannada cinema, right? If you're writing a history of Kannada cinema, you have to look at everything. You have to look at Shivram Karan. You have to look at every single experiment. I would say, for instance, in the 1970s, after Samskara, there was a huge number of movies being made which were, art cinema, including Lankesh and all that. All that will have to be looked at. There were so many people who were, I think, who were engineers in public sector enterprises who made Kannada movies. Huge number of them. I don't know if those movies exist anymore. Those movies are even available. Somebody asked me, I seriously don't know if these movies are available anymore. Obviously, that if you're going to write about the look, when you talk about the history of cinema, you have to deal with all the films being made, as shown and because they may represent something or the other. Okay. When you're talking about popular cinema, you're talking about consumption, you're talking about something else. Then it doesn't carry much of a thing for me. I'm only looking at the consumption, who is consuming it, who is it made for. And the issue here is not so much where it is made. The issue is who is the audience, who is the constituency. Look, I'm looking at the constituency, right? So the question is whether you make a movie in Madras or you make a movie in Bangalore. I fail to see what do you say, the distinction. For example, a Tamil movie made in Madras, okay, when made for a Kannada audience will be very different. The same thing, adapted or it's called dubbed or whatever, it will be very different from the original thing. Why? Because this local audience in Bangalore for whom the film is addressed, okay, that addressing is important, and to take care of that address, you have to make films in Mithra. I think movies like Akamitra, okay, would have been remade in some ways. There are plenty of movies like this. I can't really, tell you which movies, but but the important thing is what, because the issue is here is not so much who is making the film, where the film is being made, but what is the constituency, right? The same thing with art cinema. What is the constituency of art cinema? The state, right? The state, because the state depends on state patronage, it depends on so it depends on state patronage, awards, and that sort of thing. Because of that, the state is the thing. So the question is, art cinema, whether it's made in Bangalore or whether it's made in Kannada or it's made in Assam, there are very similar, similar things operating. The national issues. So when you're dealing with Kannada cinema, you're dealing with local issues, which the local public, which is consuming it, will want. I think I've answered this. Anything else that you're happy to?
Sir, do you like to answer her second question?
I've answered it, no?
Okay.
The question doesn't matter where its film is made.
Right.
I'm looking upon the constituency, right?
Okay.
The constituency is important, and the constituency who you're making the film for. For example, cinema was always made. Your Kannada cinema was always made in Madras, right? But it was always made in Madras. Where was it made in Bangalore? Never. It was made in Madras.
Okay.
So the question, even before 47, forget 56, even before 47 it was made in Madras. But the question is, when they made movies, and not only that, when Pantulu made movies in other languages also, okay? When he made movies in Tamil, it would be something else. Putana Kanagal made Malayalam movies. When he made Kannada movies, he makes it in a certain way. When he makes Malayalam movies, he makes it in a different way. He knows his public, he knows the audience, okay? So the question is constituency, right? One more question.
Next question from Vinod BN. Girish Karnad tried to recreate Akira Kurosawa recreate Akira Kurosawa in Ondanondu Karadalli, which received some success. So do you think that as filmmakers we could experiment with other non-Mysorean cultures, languages, and still find success in mainstream?
The point is, see, let me tell you about the categories of Indian cinema today, right? Okay. Let me give you a division. It's not part of my talk. Let me give you a division before we get confused. Basically, Indian films are divided in two categories. One is orality inscribed, okay. One is literacy inscribed, okay. Now, orality inscribed means your epic thing, your Rajkumar and all this is orality inscribed, right? All the heroic thing, Rajnikant, this that you have the characters which are based basically on epics and Puranas and that kind of Puranic worldview, some sort you could say, right? That is the orality inscribed cinema. The literacy inscribed cinema is your acted in by these people like Nasiruddin Shah, Nawazuddin Siddiqui, all this. Now the literacy inscribed cinema is meant for educated audiences. Okay, you have educated audiences. So now, so the question is that within the orality inscribed cinema is growing smaller and smaller and smaller. Salman Khan is basically the ruling king of the Hindi thing. Or in Kannada, for instance, you can take something like even what's his name. Ulidaru Kandante would also be, in some sense, a literacy inscribed thing. It's not so much orality. You can't take from Akira Kurosawa and expect the average audience which responds to Salman Khan. It's a more sophisticated audience. Okay, it's the same thing with something like Lunchbox. Okay, they would be. So the question is that something like taking from Kurosawa will also obviously cater to an educated public. Will have to literacy inscribed. Okay, you look at Malayalam popular cinema, you find that why is what's his name Mohanlal a completely different kind of actor from somebody like Rajnikant? Why is he? Because Kerala is a literate space, literacy levels are high, people are familiar with the novel, so the characters, look, I tell you, the characters from orality, okay, from orality, from the epics, from the Puranas, the kind of emotions they will show would be like Duryona's emotions, fear, okay, anger, hatred, okay, really the large emotions, right? Okay, you'll have fear, you won't have nervousness. The Duryodhana can't feel nervousness. Nervousness is a product of the novel in some way, right? It's a product, it will be represented in the novel. So you can't, passion, for instance, will be a thing of orality, okay? If a mild affection would be a product. For example, you can't take somebody like Amol Palekar and expect him to show passion, can you? No, you can't, because he comes from the literary tradition. The same thing with the Malayalam actors, their range is the novel, okay? You can have passion in some way, but their range thing is a novel because they come from a very literate space. This is the way. So when you talk in terms of Girish Karnad and all that, you're talking in terms of a literacy inscribed thing. When you're talking about Rajkumar's Bangarada Manusha or Kasturi Nivasa, you're talking about an orality thing. So the question is, when I talk about Kannada popular cinema, by and large, popular cinema, now it's changing. I've said with Pavan Kumar and all these people who are making, see, this multiplex thing made it possible to target literate people. Okay, to target literate people, unlike the earlier thing when you targeted on all public in a certain way. So what I mean is, you will have to target, if you're going to make a thing based on Kurosawa or something, you will have to target a literate public through it's already being done, this kind of stuff. There's a lot of Kannada Hindi cinema which takes from South Korean cinema. It takes, even Kannada will probably take from South Korean. Tamil movies, I don't know if you watch Tamil movies. What is that film? Super Deluxe. You look at Super Deluxe. Almodovar is in Super Deluxe. Obviously, it's not the Rajnikant kind of cinema. It's a somewhat different kind of cinema. Okay, so obviously it's a different audience. So the question is, the constituency will also undergo a change. It will be an urban-centric audience. It will not be, Kaka Muttai would be another urban-centric audience. So the question is, you'll have to pick an audiences. If your problem with a non-Mysore Kannada cinema would be, how would you make an orality inscribed cinema where you need a large public of some sort of popular cinema rather than a cinema which is, look, now you can make a movie in English, right? You can make a movie in any language today because of subtitling, and you can show it, right? You can show it on OTT platforms or whatever. So the question is, you can do it, but it will be a different kind of cinema. It won't be the Rajkumar kind of cinema, right?
Next question from Dr. S.K. Aruni. It is true that Bangalore does not have its loyal people, but it has many followers and have more pride of the city. Chennai or Bombay were British provincial capitals and transformed into capital towns of new linguistic states. Do you agree me that no loyalty people of the city, but it is itself is separate uniqueness?
Which one, Bangalore?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can't disagree with what you're saying at all. It's completely right. But you see, Bangalore is basically, you'll be surprised at the number of people around India. Okay, you'll be surprised at the number of people living in Delhi, in Calcutta, in Bombay, in all these places who think Bangalore is the best place to live in among all the cities of India because it's got terrific weather. The people are nice. There is no, generally there is not much violence and that sort of thing. Generally, Bangalore is loved all over India. It's probably one of the most loved cities in India. It does not have a local loyal public, is what I'm saying. Okay, okay, that is the basic thing I'm talking about.
Yeah. Next question from Murli Krishna MS, Bengaluru. In the recent past, some films made by young filmmakers like Ulidavaru Kandante, Rakshi Shetty, Rama Ramare, Padai Abhaysimha, try to break the old Mysuru-centric film themes and other related issues. Do you think that this trend assumes more significance in the coming years?
Yeah, look, I tell you, well, the entire thing of filmmaking has undergone a change. It can be made with all kinds of budgets, with all kinds of technical equipment, definitely. But you will have it will have to be, who are you going to exhibit it to? But I mean, I don't know, for instance, with cinema becoming more and more urban centric, what is going to happen to the public? About 70% live in villages and live in small towns and all that. What is going to happen to them? I tell you this, I went to this, if you go in North India, you go to places like Jhansi, you go to places like, I forget the name, some of these chota places, um, Moradabad. You go to these places, you look at the kind of movies being shown there. Daku movies are being shown there, Not that all of them are Daku movies, but I'm saying the movies you would not say. You have a look at, you go to Delhi, for instance, find out what movies are shown in Chandni Chowk, you find what movies are shown in Greater Kailas. You will know how that, for example, Chandni Chowk could be these horror movies, this, that, Daku movies. Migrant populations would probably visit that. So the question is, where the movies are shown in the city are very important. Single screen theatre is very important, right? But it is possible now to target publics in small places. I'm actually not interested so much in this urban centric cinema at all. It doesn't interest me because it's very difficult to, only in the metropolis are you possible to, to classify cinema according to audiences. But I mean, rural single screen theaters, tent cinemas, that would actually more interest me as a study of what is being shown there, what is the public watching some movie in some KR Nagar or in Chamraj Nagar or in Tirthahalli or some such thing would be interest me more than who is watching a movie in a mall in Koramangala. I'd be interested in that, right? So that's what I'm saying. So the question is possible, but basically you must know what is the public which is consuming it and the uh, how are you going to target that public? By and large, it looks like the movement is towards literacy and away from orality. This seems to be the general thing. That a large number of Hindi movies, for example, now have English titles. A large number, it's possible to have movies now today made almost entirely in English. And it's not Queen's English, it is Indian English. And it's a completely legitimate thing. So what are you going to do? What is this? So that old thing of, it will be more and more difficult, for example, to analyze these movies. Who is it targeting? What is the purpose? See, what I have done in my book, Nikhila mentioned my book. What I have done in my book is look at when the targeted audience, when the constituency was clear. Now it's not so clear, so it becomes more difficult. So I wouldn't be able to do a thing of what is the Kannada cinema which comes out of Rakshit Shetty. I seriously doubt it will be very difficult. Who is it targeting? See, if all movies are being targeted in the multiplexes, okay, how do you know who is watching those movies, right? We know this much, they're not the poor. Multiplexes are so expensive, it won't be the poor. But who exactly is watching these movies, you'll never come to know. Okay, but unlike, for example, when there's a homogeneity of population in Chitradurga, if Chitradurga a single screen theatre, you can say the Chitradurga population is there for single screen theatre. It will be watched by some locals with generally that. If it's watched in Koromangal, how do you know who's watching? Right? This is the basic issue that I would. Yeah. More difficult to study. It will become. I think it will become more difficult to study. Hindi cinema. See, Salman Khan, in my opinion, okay, is non-Anglophone India's resistance to Anglophone India. Okay, Indians are largely getting more and more concentrated in all, not exactly Indians themselves, but people who speak English can afford to pay more for cinema tickets, right? So you can, rather than depending on number of people who see the movie, you depend on the cost of tickets to recover your money. Everything will be done in 1 week, everything you recover. So you can't do these studies anymore. It's very difficult to do these studies, is what I'm saying.
A question from Dr. Naveen Halemane, Ramnagar. Are Kannada themes afraid of getting developed and concluded in their own areas? The audience have accepted movies made in coastal Karnataka these days with the support of social media, but not North Karnataka. Isn't it so?
I think, see, I'll tell you also this, that coastal Karnataka is very forward, right? It's got, not only that, if you've seen something on Tulizava Kandante, I think, they don't connect with Bangalore. There is no Bangalorean thing. They connect directly with Bombay, right? When Bangalore people are gangsters are still going around with their longs, right? The Bangalore gangsters have got guns, right? In your gangster movies, right? Bangalore gangster movies. So they don't. So it's a very forward thing. I don't think Raichur, Gulbarga, and if there's a public there, okay, there's a forward public which is prepared to watch a, what do you say, literacy inspired, sophisticated film like Rakshit Shetty is making quite sophisticated. Okay, that I don't know whether you will have filmmakers, capable filmmakers coming out of Gulbarga and Bidar. Okay, you'll have that, but you have a public there which should consume that cinema. That you'll have to see. Look at now. You have to see whether there's a public there also. That's important. Have I answered your question? If I haven't, please, reword it or whatever.
Yeah, we have finished almost chat box questions. Now I welcome, oral questions. If somebody wants to intervene, please unmute yourself and introduce yourself, and please ask your question.
Okay, should we call it today?
One second. Yeah, ಯಾರಿಗಾದ್ರೂ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಇದ್ರೆ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರೆ ಅನ್ಮ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಮತ್ತು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಕೇಳಿ. ಅದರ್ವೈಸ್ we will wrap up the session.
Okay, let's. Thank you very much.
Okay, sir. ಹಾಗಿದ್ರೆ ಈ ಸೆಷನ್ ಅನ್ನ M.K. Raghavendra sir, on behalf of Bangalore Historian Society, on behalf of Itihasa Darpana and Rutma, 3 forums we organized this session. So I collectively and personally welcome, and I also thank and express my gratitude to M.K. Raghavendra on behalf of a wonderful conversation for Q&A after the session. So thank you very much for everybody.